Hi, this week we're going to continue working in Scratch and we're going to create a pong game. So pong is where a ball bounces around the screen. You've got a paddle and you've got to move the paddle from side to side. You've got to hit the ball. If you hit the ball, you get some score. If it touches the bottom of the screen, game over, you've lost. So let's jump straight into it. So I think the first thing is we don't want this kitty. So we can just get rid of that sprite and go and get another one. So let's get a ball. So you click on choose a sprite here. We can click on the magnifying glass to select it and go and choose an object to bounce around the screen. Call me old-fashioned, I'm going to have a ball bouncing around the screen, maybe a baseball, and you can just position it on the screen. And over here where it's got the stage, you'll notice there's a white background on the stage. It's white here. You can click on the plus to choose a background, click on the search and go and find a background to use. So I'm going to use that background. You can put the ball anywhere. So let's get the ball moving. So step one in this project is to make the ball bounce around the screen. Under your motion here, you'll notice you've got move 10 steps. And if you click there, click on, I need to go to events and go when clicked. So if I click there, you can see it. It's move. Every time I click, it moves 10 steps. If you want it to move a little bit more, a little bit faster, then you just increase that number. If you want it to go slower, you decrease that number. So if you think about it, when I click it, it moves the 10 steps and then the program stops. So I want it to keep moving. So I've got to put it in some kind of loop and forever. I want it to listen out and just keep on moving. So under my control, I'm going to use a forever loop there and put the move 10 steps inside that. Let's test that. And now you see it moves forever. But it reaches the end of the edge of the screen and then stops. I want it to bounce off the end. And if you go into your motion blocks, you'll notice there's an if on edge bounce block that you can use. So now you can see it's moving, it's bouncing from side to side. Now it's just moving horizontally side to side. I want it to kind of be pointing in a particular angle. So again, if I look in my motion blocks, instead of just having it kind of set at 90 degrees, moving at 90 degrees the whole time, if I take that point and right at the beginning of the game, I'm just going to get it to point not to 90 degrees, going in the horizontal plane, but maybe change that to 45 degrees. Then when I click there, you can see it's bouncing off at 45 degrees. And you can leave it that way, you can have it move that way, or you could put a random number. So you can kind of randomize it. So I think that's in operators. Yeah, pick random. And then I don't want it 1 to 10 because then that's going to happen. It's going to do that kind of thing. Maybe instead of 45, I can have it random 40 to 50. Just so that it points in a slightly different direction each time. And it's going to, that should add a little bit of interest to it. So once I've got my ball bouncing around, I need a paddle to hit the ball with. So I'm going to need to add that sprite and go and search for a paddle. So in the search bar, I just go and search for paddle and I place that on the screen kind of anywhere. And you'll notice as I place it here, it's got an X position on the X axis, and then it's also got a Y position on the Y axis. So as you move the sprite around the screen, you can see it's changing X and Y values. So sort of in the middle, it should be X naught, Y naught, very close to that. If I move in this direction, it's a minus number. And if I move in that direction, the X axis becomes a positive number. So the X value is changing. I don't want to change the Y value. That I want to leave the same. But I want this to move with my cursor. As I move the cursor, as I move the mouse around the screen, it's to hit the ball. I want it to change as it hits the ball. So under the paddle code, if I click on the basketball, that's the code for the baseball. If I click on the paddle, I now need the code for the paddle. So again, I'm just going to start with a when the game starts one. And under motion, I'm going to want it to move, but I want it to move in the X direction. So I'm going to want to go and take that set X to. So set X, that would be 170. That would just set it there. I want it to move with the mouse. So I wonder if that's sensing. Is there something here? There's touching mouse pointer. There we go, mouse X. So what it's doing is it is setting the X for the paddle, and it'll be there in the kind of center of the sprite, to wherever mouse X is. If I just plop that in there, you'll notice it just kind of jumped there, because that's, I think, where the cursor was. That's not working. The X value isn't really working there. I need it to forever listen out, so it changes it all the time. Not just happening when the flag is clicked, it happens and then it stops happening. I need a forever loop. So I'll just go and get a forever loop and set X to the pointer there. And you'll notice now, as I move along the X plane with my mouse, it changes the position of the paddle. And the Y value is not changing. Good. So it's kind of stuck in this plane. Now I need the ball to bounce when it hits the paddle. So I can either do this as part of the ball code or the paddle code. It's kind of bouncing when it's the ball that bounces, so maybe do it under the bounce code. And I'm going to set up another bit of code for when I click the flag. And it's going to bounce all the time. It's going to listen out all the time. So that's a forever loop. So I can put that in. And now what I wanted to do is, if the ball hits the paddle, it must just change direction. If the ball hits the paddle. Do you hear the if there? I need some if. So I go into my control code. I just get some if there. So if it hits the paddle, I'll deal with that bit later, then the ball must change direction. So that's in motion. Oh, it must turn a certain number of degrees. So if you kind of turn all the way around, that's going to be 180 degrees, isn't it? So if it touches the paddle, then it's going to turn 180 degrees. The touching the paddle is in sensing. So here it says touching. So it's touching something. So I can go, if it's touching, not the mouse pointer, but if it's touching the paddle, then it must turn 180 degrees. Let's test that code and see if it works. Yeah, as it hits the paddle, we got in a bit of a bind there. That sometimes happens. And you'll notice it kind of still bouncing off the bottom. But it's bouncing around. I can just randomize that. So I can make it not only 180, but maybe 160, all the way to 200 degrees. So just so it comes off at a slightly different angle off the paddle, a slightly random, doesn't quite turn around, it does some slightly different things. And you can get kind of stuck in a bit of a loop there, but that's fun. So it turns in that direction. That's working. So now let's get back to, if it touches the bottom, I want the game to end. So to do that, we're going to need to add a line at the bottom of the screen. So I've got a nice red line there, and I'm going to place that right at the bottom of the screen. That's the kind of dead line. You're dead if you hit that. And I need to add some code for that. So when it's clicked, it's got to listen out forever to see whenever it happens. It doesn't just hit it once, forever. And it's going to be one of those if touching again, isn't it? So if the baseball is touching the line, then something must happen. And what I want to happen is the game must end. So game must end Oh, that must be a control, isn't it? There we go, stop all. So it's going to stop everything if it touches the bottom there. So we'll just try that. Come on. Just position the ball and let it touch the bottom, and it ends the game. Now I need to add some score. So to do that, I'm going to attach the score to the ball. So I'm going to use another one of these flags, if, and then I'm going to go and make a variable for my score. So I'm making a variable called score. I want it to work for all sprites, so just click OK. So that adds score at the top here. And I'm going to set, at the beginning of the game, I'm going to set score to 0. And then, forever, it must listen out. And if it touches the paddle, then if the ball touches the paddle, then it must add to the score. So I can do this here actually. I can go and get my variable and I can change the score by 1. So let's test that and see if that works. Hits the paddle. Ooh, and it's changing it, because it's just changed. I put it outside the if. Let me put it inside the if. And changes the score by 1, changes the score by 2, changes the score by 3, etc., etc. So that code seems to be working quite nicely. Let's go and add another dimension, another level to this. So I'm going to go to my backdrop and I'm going to choose another level. Maybe now we go to the desert. So now I'm in the desert level. And forever, I'm going to listen out, and if, I need control here, if, and then I go to my operators, if the score, so I go to variables now, and I choose score, if the score gets greater than, let's say 20, so if I've scored 20, I'm going to go on to the next level. So that would be presumably the looks. I would then, there should be somewhere here, next backdrop. So forever it listens out, and if the score is greater than 20, it goes on to the next backdrop. But when I reset the game, I needed to go to the first backdrop. So I'm going to go right at the beginning, before it sets the score even, it's going to make the backdrop Beach Malibu, then set the score to 0, and if the score is ever above 20, it goes on to the next level, basically. So let's just test that, and we're going to just run it, and if the score gets above 20, then it's going to go to the next backdrop. I should have made it a smaller number. Now you're going to have to watch me playing, and I might miss and the game might end. But it should work. I'm still Beach Malibu. I'm up to 11, 12. Oh, this is such fun. Oh, I love this game. I'm actually quite nervous as I get closer. I'm going to miss. It now should be above 20. And it's gone to the new level, and something went wrong there. We'll have to figure out what that is. But I think that's quite a nice little project to put together, and have fun with it and change it. Give your own backgrounds, try and get to go at different angles of the screen. Try and make this project your own.